coming into the end of the first quarter. I should probably touch on that towards the end of the month too, of just doing a review of your first quarter. So we'll add that into the trainings. This week, we're focusing in on running comps. That was one of the requested trainings. And then on Thursday, we will touch on pricing properties appropriately, right? Like it's a similar process, but it's a little bit different as far as taking the comps and actually figuring out where to price a property. But let's look at comps. Does anybody have any questions before we get started? All right. If nothing else, today and Thursday, you'll get some bonus practice going over this twice. So you'll get some bonus practice as far as making sure that you understand the comping process. So let's hop in. I'm just enlarging my window here so that I can share it with you all. We're going to hop into Barry's. See if that shows appropriately because it's not showing up on mine. Oh, it looks like it's showing up good. All right. And now let me just try to make it bigger. As always, if you guys have any questions as we move through this window is just not participating. I may have to start over. Wow. I'm failing this morning. Sorry, guys. Let's try this again. This window is dead. Dead window. All of these windows are dead. Okay, hold on. All right. Hold on. My Chrome has decided that it no longer wants to work. So let me get out of there and reopen my window. All right, while I'm doing this, we will talk about, well, I was mentioning that if you guys have anything, questions, you need me to repeat something, show you how to do something again as we move through this training, don't hesitate to reach out. You can unmute yourself and just interrupt me and say, wait, go back and do that again. You can throw it in the chat box. I do have the chat box open. You can raise your little zoomy hand. I can see that as well. So those are the ways to interact. If you're watching this on replay, feel free to throw your questions into the comment section or reach out to me directly. So we've got that. Why would we want to comp properties? What is the purpose, right? There's lots of reasons for doing what we would call comps or a market analysis of a property. One of the reasons is we talked in the month of January about following up with our database and staying in touch with our database. And one of the things that I recommended that you did as part of that regular routine follow-up was to make sure that you maybe send out a market analysis to everybody in your database at least once per year. Okay, so there's a really easy way to do that one, but that would be one reason that we might do a market analysis is just keeping people up to date of what their property values are. So I'm just trying to figure out what the website was that I was supposed to be going to again. The other reason that we may want to comp a property is we may have a buyer looking to purchase or make an offer on a property, and we want to run comps on that property to make sure that we feel like we know where that property is going to appraise so that we can advise them as far as making an offer, right? Because especially if we're in a competitive market where we have a situation where we may be offering over asking, or we may do an appraisal gap guarantee, right? We're filling in that little line on the appraisal contingency area that, hey, as long as it appraises for X, we're good to go. We want to know where we think it's going to appraise. Because if our buyers are saying, hey, we're willing to come in with $30,000 over appraised value to get this property, we want to kind of have an idea of where we think that's going to be so that we can advise them well on, hey, here's where we think the market value is. Here's where we think it's going to appraise. And if you decide to offer higher than that, number one, it may kill the deal if the appraisal doesn't come in. Number two, we may have to negotiate with the seller to meet in the middle, which means that a buyer would have to come in with additional funds, or if they already know what that looks like, and they're making a guarantee against the appraised value, that they are willing to put that money on the table in order to make that happen. Why is it important that it appraises at value? In case you haven't ever heard this before, it's important because a buyer's lender is going to loan money based on either the contract price or the appraised value, whichever is less. Okay, so if we're in contract at 600,000, the lender's basing their loan amount, let's say it's a 20% down with an 80% loan to value ratio, right? So if we're in contract at 600,000 and our buyers are coming in with 20%, 600 times 20, whoops, 20%. That's, my buyers are coming in with $120,000, okay, as the contract stands. If our appraisal comes in below that, then what's going to happen is, let's say the property only appraises at 580,000. 580,000. So now what our lender is going to do is, instead of the contract price of 600,000, they're going to base their loan amount on that appraised value of 580,000, and 20% of that loan amount, or that of the appraised value, is 116,000, which means, here's how this works out. Originally, our loan amount at 600,000, our loan amount was going to be 480,000. Okay, our buyers were coming in with 120,000. Our loan amount was going to be 480,000. At 580,000, our loan amount, which is what the lender's focused on, not your down payment, but the loan amount, is going to be 464,000. So instead of 480,000, now we're only got a loan amount of 464,000, which means that difference, right? That additional $20,000 approximately, it's a little less than, my buyer's going to have to come in with those funds, okay, to cover that gap, unless we can renegotiate the contract. So that's why the appraised value is super important. Okay, so that's the second reason. We might be sending out a market analysis to existing or previous clients. We might be looking at comps on a property that our buyers want to write an offer on. Or the other reason is, we may have a listing appointment and we need to figure out where that market value is in order to be able to figure out where we should list the property. Okay, so today what we're going to do is we're going to focus in on like running comps for like a buyer transaction, just your basic comps. So you should be able to see my screen. I should have the Barry's window open. I'm going to go into my new listings here on my 24-hour market watch, just so I have an address of a property. I'm going to, let's look at this 1042 Topaz. Okay. In fact, I think that's one of our agent's listings. Maybe we shouldn't do that one. Let's look at 185 Woodridge.
Amy?
Yes?
Is it off topic to ask what this market watch is?
No, absolutely. I love the market watch. So thank you for asking that question. The market watch used to be, it's on your home dashboard on your Barry screen.
I'm looking for it. I don't see it.
Say that again?
I said it's not on mine, so I guess I have to find it.
Oh, so yeah, so your boxes can get moved around and you can edit that dashboard. So if you go on the blue toolbar all the way to the right-hand side, there's a little settings cog. If you click on that, yours might be turned off. So you can toggle your little boxes on and off depending on what you want to see on your home screen. So if you're not seeing the market watch and you're not scrolling down and seeing it, that would be where you could turn it on or off. And then once you got it turned on, hit save. The market watch used to be, back in the day, it used to be the 24-hour market watch, and you could only set it by zip code. So you could select which like zip code you wanted to show up on there, and you didn't have any leadway as to what showed up. It just gave you whatever was in those zip codes that you had selected. Most people just left theirs set to the default, which was like all of the Barry service area. I really like the market watch, especially now that it's edited. So this is our little rabbit hole here. But yours also may look like this. So I just toggled it over to a chart versus a list. I like the list format, but just know that if you're looking for it and you've got a pie chart on there, that could be your market watch. You're looking for the market at the top. So I like the list. What we can do here is any of your saved searches or any search that you can do, you can set it up to be able to view on the market watch. So I've got mine set up. This one here that I've got currently showing is my market watch is what I've called it. And it has my primary service area, which for this example, when I created this was Dixon, Vacaville, and Winters. I wanted to stay in touch with the market for those 3 cities because that's where I do the most of my business. Okay. And then I make sure to always select all the settings. I can show you how to do this here in a second. And then what it does is this days back, it's just going to show me, hey, in the last 24 hours, in the last 1 day, what new properties have come on the market, what's come back on the market, where their price increases, price reductions, contingents, pendings, closed, expires, or inactives. Okay, the only settings are the only statuses I really pay attention to on the market watch are my new listings, my back on market, and my price reductions. Okay, when I was in full production on a daily basis, I would not call myself in full production now. But when I was in full production, I used to log into Barry's every single morning. I would open up my market watch and I would click on the new listings to see what new properties were coming on the market because I wanted to know if there was anything coming on the market that might match any of my buyers' criteria so that I could let them know about those listings before they even saw them in their inbox. As well as it helped me when I was talking with people. If they were like, man, yeah, we just need more room. Like we've got 3 bedrooms. I'm really hoping for a 4-bedroom. I could be like, oh my gosh, there was a 4-bedroom that just came on the market today. Right. So I always check the new listings. I always check the back on market. Those fell out of contract. We want to wrap those up and get those back into contract as soon as possible. And oftentimes I've had buyers looking for properties that were really sad because they hesitated and the properties went in the contract and then they come back on the market. So if I'm checking this back on the market every single day, I know what's coming back on. I know what might match my buyer's criteria. I know if one that my buyers were sad about has now returned, right? So I can keep a pulse on it. And then those price reductions to see if something that my buyers might be interested in have come back into their price range that may have been priced a little high, right? This price reductions is also a good place to go if you've got buyers that are looking for a deal, staying on top of those, hey, where are the price reductions on a daily basis? Then you can reach out to them and be like, hey, remember that property that you thought was listed too much? They've now done a reduction. This means they're kind of getting desperate and they may want to let it go. So we might be able to get it for a deal, right? So those are kind of the 3 areas of the market watch. You also, let's say it's Monday, you didn't do your market watch on Saturday and Sunday. I could come back here to days back and go back 3 days and check in on those listings for what's happened over the last 3 days. So if you take your days off like a good agent should, you can go back and review what listings came on while you had your day off. So that's the general idea of that market watch box. Deborah, you can manage your market watch by hitting the little manage button at the bottom, which pops up what saved searches you have and what is set up for market watch and what isn't. Like this NSC market update is set for off. So when I go to my market watch, I've got a drop down of searches that are available there. I could toggle this on and now it's going to show up in that market watch. Okay, the other thing that you can do is you can go into searches and go to, I know this is a little side step, but this is really cool, this feature.
Thank you.
So no problem. I can go into searches and go like standard search or map search, whatever that is, whatever kind of search you want to do. And maybe I've got a buyer that's looking for a single story home in up to 800,000, right? So I'm just filling in my search criteria here. Now, because I'm going to set this up as a, well, it really doesn't matter. Sorry. All right. So single story up to 800,000 and they're looking inside of Vacaville. They're looking inside of Dixon and they're willing to go to Fairfield. I can't spell Fairfield, but that's all right. There we go. Right. So I put my cities in there. Then what I can do is I can come up here and hit save. Okay, and I can save this as Petard home search. So maybe my buyer's name was Petard. And then I'm going to toggle this market watch button over to on. Okay, so you can do this for all of your active buyers and then hit save. Okay, so now I've saved that search. So now if I go back to home, to my market watch, I can go to this drop down and I can find that Petard home search and click on it, and it'll tell me in the last 3 days what properties have come on the market that match that criteria or that have had a price reduction into that criteria. So it makes it really easy on a daily basis. I could have a search saved for each of my buyers, and I can just pop into each one, look and see if there's anything that matches. If there is, all you have to do is click on, let's go back to Petard home search. I can click on this new listings. It's going to take me to the properties that match that criteria, that were single story, or at least inputted as single story. I didn't do a bedroom or bathroom count because I made it really simple, that match that. And then I could go through and look at those properties. So that's the idea behind the market search. We used to not have, we used to not have all the flexibility we did now. So I used to have on my whiteboard a list of all my buyers, basic criteria of properties. And then as I was going through each day, my market area, I could look and see if there was anything that matched any of those buyers. But now we have the ability to save those searches so that you can pull them up each day and just scroll down and be like, oh, which ones have like matched their home with a pool over the last 3 days? Which ones match this buyer? So it makes it a really cool feature. Whichever one you have starred. So see how this got this little gold star? If I click on that, it moves the gold star. That becomes my default. So that's how you change around your default that pops up when you open it. Any other questions about that market watch?
Nope, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So we are going to pretend that we have a buyer looking at 185 Woodridge Circle. Okay. So one of the things that I do when I pull comps, we're back to now running comps. One of the things that I do when I run comps is this little on the gray toolbar next to my little human. There's a little square with an arrow pointing up and to the right. If I click on that, it's going to open up a secondary tab on the berries page so that I can have more than one berries tab open. Okay, that's the only way to open more than one tab is clicking that. So now I've got 2 berries windows. Okay, right now they look the same. So I'm going to plug in here in the search bar. If yours doesn't have this search bar up here, that is also a setting inside of your preferences. So you can always, RIDG, there we go. So I'm going to pull up the property that my buyers are interested in putting in an offer on. Number one, this by putting in the address, it pulls up, be careful because I didn't put like circle or drive. So it does have a Vallejo listing in here, but here I can pull up that active listing. This just allows me to be able to reference it. Okay. So here I've got 185 Woodridge pulled up. Now I'm going to go back to my original screen. I'm going to go into searches. When I do comps or a market analysis on a property, I like to use the interactive map because it allows me to be very specific in where I'm looking for those comps. So when we're looking for a purchase transaction or a seller transaction, our appraisers are going to look within they're going to look at a close radius and then expand that radius out and go back about 6 months or so. Okay, I like to start a little sooner than that, especially depending on what the market's doing. If the market's been stagnant for a little while, it's kind of been the same. There hasn't been any big upswings or downswings. Then going back 6 months, totally appropriate. We may even go back further than that. But if the market's really moving, if it's a competitive market and we're noticing either a lot of upticks in property values or we're noticing that, there's a lot of price reductions and the market's kind of dipping just a little bit, I like to keep it a little closer first. So here's what I'm going to do. I go to the interactive map search. Here in this toolbar on the white bar of the map, I'm going to plug in the property address. Circle. Usually if you start typing it in, it'll pop up like some suggestions. So you can just click on that. And then that's going to recenter the map on that listing. Okay, I want it to leave this little red marker on my map. So I'm going to not hit remove marker. I'm just going to hit the little X so this box goes away. And then in the bottom right corner, there's zoom button. So I'm going to zoom out because what I want to do is I want to get a picture of the neighborhood. Okay. If you're familiar with neighborhoods, which I always recommend that you do business in areas that you're familiar with so that you know where kind of these neighborhood breaks and lines are to make it a little easier for you to look at comps and values and such. But if you weren't familiar with this area, see this big fat road, I would say, oh, that could be like a neighborhood barrier. Like what is on the other side of that road might be different than the one that we're looking at. And then we've got this canal, which is a natural barrier. So that's probably also, you know, if we cross over that canal, it could be a different market area. And then also there's also this natural little break right here in between these two neighborhoods that are in between that canal and the main road. So you could also think, you know, if you weren't really familiar, you might think, oh, that might be a different area as well. Okay. So just we look for those natural breaks. That's usually where developments, like, you know, you have new subdivision goes in and then, you know, they build out and create that subdivision. Then they move on to a next one. So usually what's like in that neighborhood is pretty similar, but we start crossing over lines, then it becomes a little bit more difficult. So then what I like to do is I hit this draw button on the white toolbar. And then I hit the little triangle with the dots, which is the polygon. And I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to create a border for, I'm actually going to include this whole neighborhood here and come up. Okay, so that's where I'm going to start. I like to start looking like in the exact neighborhood because chances are we might come across the property with the same floor plan, and that's who appraisers are going to look at first. Okay, so I like to consider like what's an appraiser going to look at, because that's what I'm going for when we're going to write an offer on the properties. Where do I think the appraiser is going to give me value for this property? Okay, then I'm going to come over here on the right hand side and hit that search criteria button. Now, if your search criteria looks a little different than mine, you can go into fields here on one of the tabbies by the close, and you can add additional fields. So if there's something that you're missing there, like mine has pool on there, because I've added it from this list. Okay, so just something to keep in mind. Once you select those, you hit save. Okay, but we're going to come back to the search. So when looking at comps, our appraisers are going to focus in on the closed listings. Okay, what has closed? And this automatically, I have it set in my settings to go back about 6 months, but I'm going to bump this to 3. So we're at the beginning of March now. So I want all of December, all of January, and all of February. I'm not exact on dates. I'm just, hey, what's like the first of the third month back? Okay. Now what we may also want to take into account is I'm going to go ahead and click the pending and contingent buttons just so I know what's in contract, because if I'm trying to like get value for something, I want to know what is potentially closing between now and when the appraisal might happen. The sold off MLS, I'm not really concerned about because those usually have extenuating circumstances with them, right? It was a family transaction that an agent wanted in here for comp, or not comp purposes, but for credit into like broker metrics or whatever. It could be like a sale between a landlord and a tenant. So there's lots of reasons that it might have been sold off MLS. And then I don't really care about withdrawn, canceled, duplicate, expired, all those. Okay. So there we go. And then keep in mind that when we're on the map search, our dots match the colors over here. So like our coming soon is yellow, our active and contingents are blue, pending are green, and closed is red. So if we look at the dots, our green dots are pending, our red dots are closed, and our blues are either contingent or active properties. Okay. That's usually where I start. Okay, now if I wanted to toggle back to my other screen that has the property details, I know this is a 4-bedroom, 3.5 bath home at 2,000 square feet and a lot size at 6158. Our appraisers are going to look at properties within a couple hundred square feet. Okay, but I usually start at just like blanket, here's the neighborhood, here's the comps I'm pulling in that neighborhood without eliminating anything based on bedroom square footage or anything like that. Okay. So next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the displays and go to the one line grid. Okay, I like the one line grid because I can sort the properties. Okay, so I'm going to just, okay, before I go there, if you click on the dots, you can pull up the property information for each of these properties, but it's a little cumbersome and clunky. and it's not super efficient. So that's why I go from here over to displays to one line grid, because now it's going to put them all on a list format for me so I can compare the stats. Okay, so remember our subject property that we're looking at, which is right here, it's listed here, this 185 Woodridge is 2,000 square feet. So because it's on the one line grid, this is why I like this search, I can sort by square footage. So if I want to click on that square footage, now it's going to list them smallest to largest. And this is by far the largest of the properties. Okay. So again, appraisers, when they're looking at properties, they're probably not going to compare this 879 Scottsdale property, which is only 1,100 square feet, to a 2,000 square foot. But these 1,600 and 1,800 properties, they may. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click these boxes here for these properties that I think an appraiser may use as comps. 1,600 still a little smaller than what they normally will grab for, but it's in the neighborhood, so I like it. Okay. So we're going to start there. Let's see here. You can customize this grid as well. Okay. So like mine has number of fireplaces and do they have a pool? Because when we're looking at comps, a property with a pool and a property without a pool, we don't like comparing those either. Okay. That could be like a big difference. They used to give a lot more values to pools, and then like they didn't give as much. I think they're kind of back to giving a little bit more value now, but so I have this here. If you want to edit this grid where you have more options here, or take stuff out that you don't need, that's on the customize grid button. So if you click on that, it will allow you to add and remove columns. Okay, so like let's say that, just looking here at what I can delete from my list: lot size, lot acres, fireplace. I'm going to eliminate this price per square foot. So I'm going to click on it and hit oh, darn it. Let's hit here. I'm not going to hit the save button. Do I want to save changes? I get okay or cancel. I'm going to hit cancel. There we go. All right. So don't hit the remove all. Go to customize grid. I'm glad I'm showing you guys what you shouldn't do. Hold on, we're going back to that customize grid button so I can show you guys how to do that. All right. We were going to remove off the price per square foot. Actually, I'm going to remove this change type off. We're just going to hit this single remove, not the red remove all. I should have known as soon as it was red that that was bad. Okay, so we removed that one. If there was something I wanted to add in, like maybe I wanted to add in the number of rooms, I would click on that. Or maybe let's look for garage. Garage might be a good one to add on to the list. So I'm just going to scroll down. These are alphabetical for the most part. Sometimes they're a little tricky because they call it something weird and random. So I hit this garage space and hit add. If I hit add just right here like this, it's going to add it to the bottom of my list. Okay. If I change this number, notice these go up in increments of 10. If I'm like, well, I'd like garages right after the pool. So right after the 160, I'm going to call it 170. And then hit add, then it adds garage space there right after pool. Now, if I hadn't done it there, let's just go foundation and hit. It defaulted to 190, which would now be 200, and hit add. If I decide this is in the wrong spot, if I click on it, I can move it up that list, or I can move something down. So you can sort the list here as well. Okay, now I'm going to take this and I'm going to remove that back off because I don't care about the foundation. All right, you can also have boxes here to select icons that are going to be on the right side of your display, like attached documents, virtual media, pictures, map, tax info, property history, additional info that would show up as little boxes. So I don't know what that is. Let's click that. Then I'm going to hit the save button. You can hit new and it'll save it as a new search option for you so that that grid is different than the rest. All right. So now we're going to go, I hit save. I'm going to go back to list. So now you'll see here that the number of garage spaces show up here. Okay, and then here are all those little buttons that I selected. So here's the additional information button. This is what those little check boxes at the bottom referred to on this grid. So there we go. All right. So it resorted it based on that. So anyways, that's how you manage this grid box. Okay. So now what I can do is if I'm like, man, I like these properties as comps for that one. It's fabulous. But I may be like, well, I only got 2 closed and nothing's really close to square footage. So let's go back and revise, change our criteria up a little bit to see if we can get some comps closer to that 2,000 square foot. Because right now ours is the biggest listing and there's nothing even close to it price-wise. Okay, so we're going to hit revise criteria, which is going to take us back to that map view so that we can change our search criteria. Now, remember at the beginning, I said that appraisers will go out like up to a half mile when it comes to in-town properties. So we can do one of 2 things. We can either say, hey, I know this area really good, and these properties across the street are similar to these here that I'm looking at. Or I could click on my little marker and I could say, hey, I want a radius of a half mile. So see, that's going to bump that open and bring in some other properties. So that's one way to do it. If you're like, ooh, no, I don't like that. We just come next to the draw button. There's an edit button. And then here we've got that circle. We just hit the X, which is going to remove those properties. Okay. Now I know that when we looked at what a half mile was, so let's look at that half mile again. It's pulling because it's over on this side of the neighborhood. It's going into this area over here, this owl circle, eagle. These properties are a lot different than the properties over here. And then we get up on the other side of Marshall into Arbor Oaks. Did somebody have a question? All right. So kind of a little different neighborhood too. So what I've got 2 options. Here, I can expand the search greater. I could even go potentially into this neighborhood over here because I know that this neighborhood's fairly similar, or I could go back further in time. So let me get rid of that circle because I don't really like the placement of the circle. I'm going to hit the little close button, and then I'm going to come back to search criteria. And maybe I'm going to come into this closed, and maybe I'm going to go back to October 1st, which is still within that 6-month window of time. And then I want to eliminate some of those smaller properties. So I'm going to come down here to our living area, our square footage, and I'm going to say, hey, I only want properties over 1,600 square feet. Okay. So now we did get, we've got a new little dot here. So if I click on that one, oh, here, look, this one's a model match. It should be at least, it's 2039 square feet. So let's look at what our property was. Ours was 2039. So model match property right here. I'm going to click this box so it shows up on my list. If we want to see more details on this property, we can actually click on it. It'll open this window over here, and then you can scroll through the pictures and say, how does this one compare to our property? It was staged nicely, has an updated kitchen, nice kind of hard floors, although they're mixed matched, bathrooms. It's got, did you see this? Look at this. It's got colorful doors. It's got a yellow door on this room. Sorry, I get distracted by weird things. It's got a green door on this room. They painted their doors different color. Red. Oh, look, I can see a little like a teal door through the other door there. The bathrooms are nice and updated. I think their doors might have hurt them. It's kind of unique though. Then you can say, just take it to the purple room. All right, there's the master. Oh, it's got a nice little sun porch. Yellow room. Oh, this one's got a swimming pool. All right. So, so if we go back to our subject property that our buyers are wanting to write an offer on. Oh, it won't let me go backwards. That's too bad. We can blow this up too. If you click on that photo, I didn't know if you guys knew this, it will blow up the photos for you. All right. Here's that oh, it's nice and updated too with nice wood floors or hard floors. They're not wood probably, and they're also mix matched a little bit. Oh, that was ugly. These floors are kind of delambing on the corners. All right. Oh, it's got a nice updated kitchen though. This is very similar to that property that we were looking at previously, right? Nice updated kitchen, hard floors, mix matched. throughout. It doesn't have the colorful doors though, which makes me a little sad. This one also has the original windows. I'm not sure, I didn't pay attention to the windows on the last one, but the bathrooms are nice. This one does not have a swimming pool, and it's not. So, all right. So we're going to close that down, back down there. All right. Okay, so if I was looking at this for my buyers, so now if I go back to displays, notice when I check the boxes, when I was in the one line grid, it checks those boxes here so I can see where those are at. Just for kicks, I'm going to draw into this next neighborhood to see what pops up over here. Just to see if we can get some more properties that are closer to that 2,000 square feet without a pool. All right. And then you could also, we could go search criteria. I've got pool selected down here somewhere right here. So again, you can go in the fields and you can add this. I'm going to hit select and I'm going to say pool needs to be no. Now, because I checked the model match property, that box was checked, it's not going to eliminate that one from my search. Once you check those boxes, they're always going to show up. Okay, and now I'm going to go over to display and go to that one line grid. All right. So now we've got a couple other properties here, one at 3,300 square feet, which is a little big, and one at 1,800. This one's pretty close. We know this one doesn't have a pool. So let's look at this Woodhaven property and see what the condition of it was. So I'm just going to click on the numbers. So it pops up that property. Oh, there we go. All right. And then I just scroll through. I'm really looking at, hey, how's the backyard look? How's the main house? Oh, this one's a lot prettier than our existing property that we're looking at. The floors all match. Very similar color scheme. This one has a little prettier landscaping when we glanced at the backyard. All right, we're just scrolling. I'm just looking for those bathrooms. I have a feeling the bathrooms are going to be updated nicely. Not really. It's okay, but not fabulous. So I would say this one's pretty close to the property that my buyers are wanting to make an offer on. This one's listed at 620,000. It's a little smaller than our subject property at 1,840 square feet. It's about 150 square feet smaller. Neither of them have swimming pools. So I would say this one's a little nicer. This is probably a decent comp for the property. So if I had buyers that were wanting to write an offer in on this 185 Woodridge that's listed at 650,000 with a rock front yard, my guess is it may not appraise. I don't have anything on here that's telling me it's going to appraise at this 650,000. In fact, if I go back right to my list, the property that was a model match, oops, sorry, wrong list. Back to this list. The property that was a model match here, let's see where that one is at 660,000 with a swimming pool. And this one's listed at 650,000 without a swimming pool. My guess is this is on the market a little higher than where it should be. And it may not appraise at that amount. I don't have any comps that justify it appraising at 650,000. Does that make sense to everybody? Thumbs up, thumbs down, questions on how I got to that assumption? All right. We also have this plantation property here that's pretty close to the property size listed at 640,000. It's been on the market for 100 days. So let's just click on that one and double check what the condition of that one looks like. Oh, look, it's a pretty property. Let's see here. Let's blow up those photos. Oh, this one also has some hard floors throughout. They look a little mixed matched as well. It has the original kitchen, but it's been painted with newer appliances, so it looks nice. It does look like it has the original windows. All right, I'm just scrolling through. It does have some carpet. This one doesn't have as many updates as the property we're looking at. This one also has a swimming pool. All right. So if I go back to my list, this one's, oops, I hit the little, I don't even know what I hit, back to list. All right. So this one here, here's my subject property on the top line, the 185 Woodridge. I'm going to sort by square footage to put them back in order of square footage. So here's that new property, 185 Woodridge. The property that's listed, both properties that are listed very similar, one that closed back in November and one that's active on the market, are listed at 660 with a swimming pool and 640 with a swimming pool. Now the 641 doesn't have as many updates, but it has a swimming pool, so it's going to be worth more. So here I've got that 650,000. This one's got too many square footage. It's up to 3,400 square feet. So it's not even going to be a good comp. So none of these properties justify a list or an asking price of 650,000 as far as I'm going to advise my buyers that, hey, we can go in at asking, but I'm concerned about the appraised value on this one. I'm afraid that it's not going to appraise at what they're asking for it. So if there were no other offers in on this property, I would probably advise them to come in lower, probably closer to like the 610 to 620 mark is probably closer to where that market value is going to land. Because if I've got 660 model match with a swimming pool, it may appraise at like 640. They may give like 40,000, 20,000 for that swimming pool. So it may be closer like 620 to 640 for value on this property. This one here is at 640. It's still on the market. It's not even in contract yet with a swimming pool, similar square footage. This one doesn't have as nice updates. Okay, so those are my three main properties that I'm going to look at. Even though two of them have swimming pools, there's just nothing that's like close in square footage. The closest ones I've got are like this 1900 one on Hamilton. Right? That's only about 100 square feet, 120, but it's an ugly property. I don't know what the inside's okay. The outside's ugly. So this one, just not quite as nice. It's kind of ugly. It is a 4-bedroom, 2-bath with a downstairs bedroom, bathroom access. So, and that one's listed at only 500 and here, 50,000. You do have this Woodhaven, this 312 Woodhaven that's a little smaller that sold for 1840. So that's also a good comp. So yeah, so based on this, I'd probably say 620 to 640 is probably where our value is going to land on this property with an appraisal. So does that make sense, Iris? Okay. So it's right. It's when you're doing a market analysis, there's no like, we're not appraisers. So we're not like, oh, an appraiser is always going to give a pool this amount of value. And they always give a additional square foot this value because appraisers vary from appraiser to appraisers. So we're just trying to like find comps that are going to justify what our buyers are going to offer on this property. Okay. If this property had a pool, I'd be like, yeah, absolutely. Like, in fact, I think it's priced a little low. It may actually go a little higher because it's got some nice updates to it. It's got a nice swimming pool, like, right? So it's really close to that comparable property that sold back in November. So like that would be competitively pricing this property where I'd be concerned that it might get multiple offers driving that price up to that 660 or 670 mark to match the comparable. This one listed at 650. We've got one at 620 without a swimming pool. These two, I think, both had swimming pools. So we want to take that into account there when looking at those two properties. So I think that's how I would go about looking at doing comps for a buyer for getting ready to put an offer together. And if we wanted to, we could take this and then put it into like a CMA report. So once we have selected our comps, so hold on, my little pop-ups keep coming up because I'm too close to the edge. So I might, now that I've got this closed one, I've got a couple closed, a couple active. I may eliminate these pending and smaller square footage. Just because they're so much smaller and they're kind of skewing that price a little bit. So I might select these here in the middle. And that Hamilton one that's active kind of needed a lot of work. So we might skip over that one as well. And then we could take it and put it into a CMA report. So we just come up here to the CMA. So if we wanted to print something up for our buyers to review, I personally like Cloud CMA. You could do just the CMA 3-up comparison report could be a good one. The Barry's property comparison. Let's try that one. And then we just hit go because we just want like a quick something to provide our buyers of. So here's the properties that are similar in square footage. They're similar based on neighborhood. You know, and here's what we're looking at. So you've got this one here where it's just listing kind of the basic details of all the properties to be compared. The other thing that you could do, let's try a couple of those different ones because that's kind of fun. So a 3-up comparison report. I like this one a little better because it's side by side. They can glance across and kind of see what it's at, what the original price was. If it sold, what that listing price is now. Here's the original listing price. Here's the current listing price. And then if it closed, there's the closed price. So it kind of gives them that ability to be able to look linear at those properties. So I would probably just provide my buyers something similar to one of these. I probably wouldn't go into the full Cloud CMA report, which we'll go into on Thursday when we talk about figuring out a list price for a property. Okay, so there's kind of how I like to do my CMAs. I always are my market analysis, whether I'm looking for a buyer, a seller. I'll show you one more little tip here in a moment. I always go into the interactive map search because again, that allows me to really hone in on the specific neighborhoods and general area that way versus going into, so if I did, oops, sorry, if I did this, let's just show you what this looks like and went out a half mile from the property itself, right? We're over here. Now, if I go back into that display and go one line grid, now if we look at these properties here, like if we sort them by square footage, okay, and we go down to find the square footage 2039. So we're looking for other properties like this one that's 20. Let's look at this 1993 on Oak Meadow. It closed in November as well. This one's actually a decent comp, even though it's in that other neighborhood, but so this one could work. Notice it was listed at 639. It closed at 600. It's pretty close in square footage, right? This is just trying to prove me wrong. It's kind of ugly on the inside. Big lot though. Let's look what else it pulled. Now I still stand by my value even going into these. You've got Hamilton, Oak Brook. Oh, we've got this this one here on Oak Brook that was listed at 635. So in this case, going out with that into that other neighborhood, let's see where it pulled back into. Hold on, I'm going to click this Oak Brook one real quick. And the Oak Meadow one. Then I'm going to go back and hit revise criteria because I want to see where those pop up. Oh, so there's one up here in this neighborhood and one over here. So all over the place. So an appraiser might look at those as well. So we pulled those in. But sometimes like we start getting down here on this Owl Drive or the Sparrow and you've got much newer properties. Because remember, we don't want something that's like way out of whack age-wise either. Okay. So anyways, so that's why I don't always do the radius though, is because it crosses over borders that I may not want to cross over. So you've really got to take that into account, which is why I like the map because we can go in there and highlight those neighborhoods. All right. The other thing that you can do, so that's buyers. Any other questions on this process of running comps for a potential buyer? Okay. If we go back to the Barry's dashboard, we've got this RPR. Usually. Let's see. Oh, right here, RPR in the MLS search. If you click on that, so if I was running a comp for a existing client and I was just doing their regular market analysis on an annual basis and their time had come up, I really need to, oh, there we go. I might use RPR for this. This is just kind of like quick and dirty. What's your property worth? So we can come in here and go create report.
Amy, where is that at? I lost you.
Yep. So I went just back to the main Barry's dashboard where you first log into Barry's.
Yeah.
And under the MLS search box, there's this RPR. It's got colorful blobs. Did you find it? It's the one, it's got a green dot,
here it
and a
is.
yellow
Yep.
dot,
Okay.
and a blue dot, and a red dot. I don't know what the dots stand for. So then let's plug in the property address. So maybe my clients live in now Woodbridge Circle. We're just going to use the same address.
Oh, this is the one I have trouble with. It says my NAR membership is inactive.
You may need to create a new log into it if you're having problems logging in. So here it's got the estimated price range. So I just plugged in the property address, this one because it's for sale, just pulled up that way. Because it's listed for sale. I can go into now create report and maybe like a market activity report. Let's see what that looks like. No, I don't like that one. We're just going to go print. Always takes me a while to figure out what the best option is for this one. It's loading. I probably should, let's go share desktop 1. All right. So here, if we do, I just hit the little print button that was on the screen, which gives me 6 pages, property facts, exterior, interior, legal, right? So if I was just doing like a quick little blurb for clients, this might be a great one to do because it tells me here, let me reselect a different property that's not on the market. Only because this one, it shows that it's, there we go. All right. So this one has, it's off market. It's not currently for sale. It shows what it closed for last. And then it shows us what our current value range is, this RVM estimator range. And then how confident it is in that number. Okay. And then it gives you like a value, like here's where we think the value is right now based on this range and where we think it is. Okay. You could hit view details on this one, or, you can refine. I don't even worry about any of that. Let's view details and see where it takes us on that one. Oh, this is kind of fun. So you could always go here too and use this one and just go print from this window. So if I was printing up, I would use this RPR for if I've got my existing client database once a year, I'm going to go through and give everybody a market report on this properties. This would be a fairly good way. It's only 2 pages. So if I'm going to print it off and drop it off on their doorstep as one of my 2 pop buys, or send it to them in the mail to make sure they get it, it says, hey, here's what we currently think your property's value is. Here's the value range. And here's the properties that it's using as comparisons for that. So it's a really nice, just like quick and dirty, here's an approximate value on your property. Okay, I would not trust this for like my buyer's making an offer or my seller's getting ready to list. I may look at this, but I'm going to put most of it into doing the work on Barry's myself. Whereas if I'm just, I've got a database of 400 people and I'm sending one of these out to every person once a year on a regular basis, I might come in here and just do this because it took me 3 minutes to plug in an address, hit details, and then print this report for them. Super easy way to do that to get a handy idea of the value. Now, keep in mind that as we get into more unique properties, like ones that have larger lots than anything else around it, properties out in the country, it may not be as accurate as your in-town subdivision type property. So just kind of keep that in mind. So you may want to just glance at it, make sure that makes sense value-wise. But then you could do that. So that's the system that I like to use for just that quick and dirty. Here's a value. If I'm going to put out that, on our websites now, we have the home valuation tool where somebody can click to get the home value, their home value. This might be a good way. Somebody clicks on that. Great way to just plug in there and say, yeah, here's the quick estimate of your home value. If you wanted to send me a couple pictures of your kitchen and bathrooms and backyard, I can further hone in this for a more specific range because this is almost $100,000 in range. This is a different property, Iris. So the other one, because it said that it was on market, it was showing up funky. So if we go back to that one, so I just pulled up a different property. All right, here. So here's the property that we were looking with on Barry's. It says, here's our list price. Our RVM is $651,550. So this was the property that we looked at on Barry's, but it gives you a range of $599 to $703. So this is what it's looking at here. Here's the current record of that property. And then here's what it's looking at. It's pulling in an owl circle, which is 2,700 square feet. It's pulling in a White Oak Lane, which is closer, but different neighborhood at 718,000. It's pulling up the Woodridge property, the owl. So it's got this one, I would say, which is why, again, this is not what I would use for buyers or sellers specifically, somebody making an offer on a property or sellers getting ready to list their property, because it's comparing properties that probably shouldn't have been pulled into this. So recently closed, used to calculate, off market properties used to calculate. So it's just, it's not 100%. I would say 651. We should all watch this property and see where it actually closes. My guess is it's going to close between 620 and 640, maybe. So yeah, so it's not always higher. It's just not as specific. It's taking in kind of the blanket overview of properties for sale. This is more like a Zillow than doing the comps ourselves, which is why if my buyers are getting ready to make an offer on a property or a seller's contacting me to figure out list, I'm not going to use this number. I'm going to go in there and make it more detailed, look at the actual properties and make sure we're comparing apples to apples, hone down that search to closer to square footage and lot size, make sure we're not comparing, pools to no pools, or we're taking value out for that, where this isn't doing all of that. But it does make it just a quick, somebody filled out my website for a home valuation or what's their home worth. I don't have any details on it. Here's a quick and dirty way to pull that up and kick it over to them to at least start the conversation of, hey, we can narrow this down from this range based on if I can come do a quick walkthrough, or if you can send me over a couple photos or something to that effect. So it's a great way to do it from that. Any other questions on this? Was this helpful? Did we like this training? Good. Fabulous. All right, so we covered 24-hour market watch, what that's for, how to use it, how to save searches to that, some ways you might utilize it. We talked about how to run a market analysis for a buyer property, and then we also talked about this RPR system. Coming back on Thursday, we will talk about figuring out what a list price should be for a property, so how to kind of figure that out. It's similar to asking, but there's more that goes into effect with a listing price because we have to take into account where the market's going and what it's doing. So we look more at the pending and active properties to take that into account more so than justifying it based on sold properties, which is what we're looking for buyers. So hope that was helpful. Next week, there will be no training on Monday because I'm traveling. I leave here on Thursday. I come back on Tuesday, so there'll be no Monday training next week. Thursday, we had some requests for some trainings talking about how to make offers more competitive outside of just price. So we'll probably talk about that on Thursday. It'll be a good conversation of what you can do, how you can make offers, and where you can tweak your offers to help make them more appealing to a potential seller. So we'll have those conversations next Thursday, not this coming Thursday. So there you go. I'm going to work on getting the calendar put together for the rest of this month. If you have anything that you'd like to see on it, let me know. I'd love to work those into the schedule so that you guys are getting the information that you want to see trained on. But thanks for joining me today. Have a great day. We'll see you on Thursday. You're welcome, Iris. You're welcome, Deborah.